Can you believe it's like the middle of January and the Bill season is still alive and the Sabres haven't been like pretty much mathematically eliminated from the playoffs? Like, whew. 2020s, man, this is crazy. Hey everyone, my name is Melody and thank you for clicking on this video. The NHL season is finally here. Today is Wednesday, January 13th, and the NHL season kicks off today. The Buffalo Sabres don't start until tomorrow, but the NHL season itself starts tonight, and it has been such a long time. Like, being a Sabres fan, being one of the 7 teams that didn't make it into the play-in round, the postseason over the summer, like, this has been such a long, excruciating wait, but finally we're here. We made it, guys. So to kick off the season, I asked you guys to send me in some questions just to have a little discussion about my thoughts about the upcoming Sabres season. So thank you to everyone who sent me in questions. So let's get right to it. Do you think the fact that the Sabres are in the death division this season and will only play those teams will toughen up the squad, or do you think it will cause them to nosedive like never before? That's a great question. This division is tough. It doesn't look like it'll be very fun for the Sabres. I think for the Sabres, in terms of toughen them up or nosediving, the biggest complaint has always been it didn't seem like the Sabres had really a kind of like a winning culture, right? Like, obviously they haven't made the playoffs in 9 years, but it just seems like, and this is something like, Jason Botterill complained about in his post season press conferences or whatever. He would always say that, in tight games, they would always kind of falter. And, when it mattered, it seemed like they would never really come out on top when, we were playing important games that might have some kind of meaning. This year, it's tough to tell. Like, I think Kevyn Adams did a good job of bringing in, solid veteran presence. Like, he got, obviously, Eric Staal, who's been in the league forever, and then bringing in Taylor Hall, too. I think one of the biggest problems with the Sabres over the years has been their kind of like lack of veteran presence. Like, they've always kind of had that young team that hasn't been in the playoffs, that hasn't really faced the kind of adversity that maybe veterans would, that, seasoned veterans maybe go through during their long careers. So I think bringing in more of a veteran presence, and you got, Tobias Rieder's been around for a while, Cody Eakin. I think that'll only help. I'm not going to say that they're going to tank it away like they always do. I think, 1, bringing in the veterans is going to help. 2, I think being one of the 7 teams that couldn't even get into the expanded playoff format, I think it embarrassed them, especially being so close, being the first team eliminated. I think it's embarrassing, and I think they had a long time to kind of stew about it. And so, I don't know. I think I hope anyway, they're going to come out a little bit tougher than they normally do. But who knows? We'll see. I'm not one who follows more than the casual how'd we do basis, but I can't help but wonder if Jack is getting frustrated to the point of wanting to be traded in the next season or two if things don't turn around. Am I way off base? No, I think that's every Sabres fan's concern. I think Jack has been pretty vocal about how much he hates losing and how much, this is what, going to be his 6th season, and they haven't made the playoffs at all since he's been here. So I think, it gets to a point, obviously he's an incredibly competitive person. He wants to be in the playoffs. He wants to compete for a Stanley Cup, like everybody does, but it seems like especially him. So it's definitely something that you want to worry about. I think that's kind of why it was important to go out and get someone like Taylor Hall to kind of give him a line mate that maybe he hasn't really had before. He's had some good wingers, but he's never really had someone of Taylor Hall's caliber to play with. So, obviously, we got to start turning it around. We can't just keep going with the same old crap. Like, it's not only the losing, it's boring hockey, it's uninspired hockey. Ryan O'Reilly hated it. He was very vocal about hating it. He got traded, and look what happened to him. You know what I mean? So, I know you're not off base. I hope that this is kind of the year that we show the improvement, that we are a competitive hockey team, that we can push for a playoff spot. If not this year in the weird format, then next year when things are back to normal, hopefully. We're all worried about it, but hopefully it's not a problem. Cousins looks absolutely insane for Team Canada right now. Hopefully he can be good for us too. Also, how do you feel about our forward depth at the moment? I'm not too excited about it, but who knows, maybe Kevyn Adams will prove me wrong. Yeah, so I think, I love our top 6. Our bottom 6 is, Like, adding Hall and Staal obviously is going to make a difference. It's going to make an impact, and I'm happy about that. And, I'm not really convinced that our bottom six is all that strong, but in terms of forward depth, like, I think we're okay. I'm more so concerned about defensive depth and goaltending because, we just copied and pasted it from last year. We didn't make any changes to our D group or our goaltending, which is kind of shocking. I think right now, out of the three phases, forward, defense, and goaltending, I think our forward group is definitely the strongest. But I mean, we'll see how that translates. Like, just because they look good on paper doesn't mean they'll perform well on the ice. And just because, maybe our goaltending in D doesn't look good on paper doesn't mean maybe they won't take steps forward. So who knows? We'll see. A couple questions on Paterka here. What's your opinion on JJ Paterka? He's doing great so far at the World Juniors with Stützle. And how pumped are you for Paterka? It looks amazing with Germany. Yeah. So, I don't want to totally overreact, but, if JJ Paterka wanted to let me know, what number he wanted to wear for the Sabres so I could get his jersey right away, seriously, JJ Paterka looked amazing for the Germans at the World Juniors. Somehow he got robbed as not being one of the three best players for Team Germany. I don't know how that was even possible because he was just on fire. Him and Tim Stützle were incredible on a German team that wasn't, super strong. I mean, he's just such a great skater. He's got a great shot. Just watching him, I didn't know a ton about him. Normally I do my fair share of scouting throughout the season, but with this year being weird, I didn't really pay attention to the draft or anything. So I didn't know a lot about JJ Paterka going into it. But watching him, I was so impressed, and he may single-handedly have restored my faith in second-round picks. If you watched my channel before, I always talk about how much I hate second-round picks because the Sabres have no clue how to draft players in the second round. But JJ Paterka may have just restored my faith in the Sabres' ability to draft in the second round. Knock on wood, he looks great. Hopefully he keeps trending upward because, I absolutely loved what I saw from him, and I think, a lot of Sabres fans did too. What year do you think the Sabres will finally win the Stanley Cup? 2057? I don't know. Hopefully in my lifetime. I just want one. I'm not going to be greedy. I just want one. So one Super Bowl, one Stanley Cup. That's all I want. But the Bills are out there looking like they could potentially be a Super Bowl contender. If not this year, then maybe in the next few years. Sabres, they screw things up a lot. So I don't know. Hopefully soon. With Cousins being lights out at the World Juniors, do you think he makes the opening night roster? Thoughts on Dylan Cousins and Jack Quinn? More impressive at the World Juniors, Cousins or Paterka? Yeah, so a lot of questions about the prospects. So I watched a lot of that tournament, and I gotta tell you, it was a lot of fun. A question about who is more impressive, Paterka or Cousins. Obviously, they were both very, very impressive. If I had to say more impressive, I would probably say Paterka, just because, with Cousins, as incredibly as he played, I think there was kind of a level of expectation that, if he was going to make the jump to the NHL, you'd really want to see him perform well against kids his own age. Whereas Paterka, like I said, I didn't really know as much what to expect. And so to watch him and for him to just completely blow away any expectation that I did have of him was really cool. Cousins, though, he just looked like he was on another level, and it was just so awesome to watch. He's such a powerful skater. He's a big kid. And to see him kind of take over in kind of more of a leadership role for Team Canada, I was very happy. I was very happy that he was just dominating. And especially too, my favorite thing was listening to, guys on TSN like Ray Ferraro and Craig Button and all these guys that were just gushing over him. They called him the workhorse from Whitehorse. They were just, I think Ray Ferraro said that Dylan Cousins was one of his favorite players on Team Canada in 10 years or something. They had really high praise for him. So, that only makes me more and more excited to see him come to Buffalo. In terms of this year though, I had high expectations for him at the World Juniors. I don't so much have those same kind of expectations for him in his first season in Buffalo. First of all, it's kind of tough to really see how he fits in this lineup. I think obviously they're not going to put him at center. They're going to start him off on the wing. But I think it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts to the NHL game as opposed to playing with kids his own age. I think he'll be good. I don't expect him to come over and tear it up right away. I kind of expect him to be more of a pretty good depth kind of guy, like a middle six winger at this point, who can put up points, but not a ton. I don't really see him winning the Calder this year, you know what I mean? But I think he'll do okay. I just don't, my expectations for him for the actual season aren't really super high, but I think he'll do okay. I'm very, very excited to see what he's got. Have you gotten used to saying Eric Staal plays for the Buffalo Sabres? No, literally no. It's still weird. It's still weird to think about that this guy that I didn't even like for all these years is on my favorite hockey team. It's totally weird, but hey, they're saying that he looks really good. He has looked really good in training camp. So if he plays well for the Buffalo Sabres, then I'm loving him. I'm a fan of Jeff Skinner from when he was a Cane. Do you think he will have a bounce back year? I hope so. He seems so nice down to earth. Yeah. So here's the thing with Jeff Skinner, and it really bothers me. For some reason, like, people always talk about, oh, he made $9 million, and then he scored, like, well, I don't even remember. He didn't score many goals last year. But people were making such a big deal out of that. But it's like, you have to look at his line mates. Like, there was a big part of the year he was playing with guys like Vladimir Sobotka, who's not even in the NHL anymore. You know, for a huge part of the year, Marcus Johansson was his centerman. And Marcus Johansson is like, you know, a third-line winger at best. You know, he's not a second-line center. I mean, yeah, like $9 million, you'd want him to maybe carry the play a little bit more himself, but I think he's just not really that kind of player. I think he's the kind of player that could really use a center that could complement him. He didn't get that last year, and now you're looking at training camp, and the thing that's really bothering me is they're putting him on, like, the fourth line, right? Like, they're putting him on the fourth line with fourth-line guys, which is crazy to me. It's like, why are you paying a guy $9 million? Like, I don't understand what Ralph Kruger's problem with Jeff Skinner is. Like, I think the argument could be made that maybe he wants to balance goal scoring throughout the lineup, but, I mean, if a guy you're paying to score goals can't score goals because he's playing with guys, you know, that don't really drive play at all, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And especially, too, you know, when training camp opened, there was a line of Eric Staal, Jeff Skinner, and Sam Reinhart, and all the reporters were saying that that's been one of the best lines for the Sabres in training camp, yet as we get closer to the season, it looks like they kind of broke that line up a little bit. And it just doesn't make sense to me, and I'm trying to figure out why Ralph Kruger's doing this. I mean, I loved the idea when they brought in Eric Staal. I was like, oh my god, Staal is your center, Skinner is your winger. Perfect. Reunite the Carolina Hurricanes line there. But for some reason, that's just not happening. I'd be interested to see going into the season and as the season goes on, if they keep him kind of down in the lineup or if they actually put him with players that can actually help him score goals. I think of anybody on the Sabres, he would be kind of the biggest candidate for a bounce back year just because of how bad of a year he had last year, and then coming back now wanting to redeem himself. But he can't really do that if he's playing with fourth liners, you know what I mean? So I'm definitely keeping my eye on him. We'll have to see how it goes, but like if Ralph Kruger really hasn't learned his lesson from last year and he's just going to keep playing Skinner with these kind of guys, then I think you start to kind of look at Ralph Kruger at that point and not so much Jeff Skinner, you know what I mean? I'm not sure if I'm excited or terrified to see your reactions to the Sabres. I don't know if I'm excited or terrified either, so. Who will score more goals, assists, and points between the two, Jack Eichel or Taylor Hall? Good question. I mean, they're going to play on the same line likely, so I think with Jack, he obviously took such a huge step forward this year in goal scoring. I think fans kind of got on to shoot the puck more, and once he finally started to shoot the puck more, he started scoring. It's amazing how that works. I think at heart, Jack is kind of more so of a playmaker. I think he's a pass-first kind of guy. He's always talked about being a pass-first kind of guy. So if you got a guy like Taylor Hall, I think that'll kind of put Jack more in a position to be able to set a guy like him up. So I'm going to say that Jack ends up with more assists, Hall ends up with more goals, but I'm still giving Jack the team leading points. So that's my prediction. That's a good question, though. Eric Staal has a sweet flow going on. He does. He has some nice hair. Jack, too. Have you seen Jack Eichel's hair? I mean, holy flow, man. Sabres are going for best hair in the NHL this year, apparently. Thoughts on the Sabres offseason? I mean, I'll obviously give them props for going out and getting Taylor Hall. That was a big deal. You know, getting a guy of his caliber to come to a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 9 years has kind of been one of the laughingstocks of the league this decade. That was a big deal, going out and getting a guy like Eric Staal, being a veteran presence, being that second-line center that we've needed. Was a great move by Kevin Adams. The rest of it, though, I don't like that we brought back the exact same D group. To not make any kind of moves to improve the D core is weird. I feel like that could have been done and it just wasn't. And I mean, it is what it is. Goaltending too. I feel like a lot of Sabres fans say that goaltending is the biggest issue on the team, and I'm not ready so much to give up on Linus Ullmark. Carter Hutton, unless the eye problem that he fixed was truly that big of a deal, I think he's kind of not really that good at all. But I'm not ready to say that Linus Ullmark is a bad goalie either. I think he's good enough where if the team is better in front of him, he can carry us to potentially a playoff spot, even if it's, maybe not a high playoff spot, but something. I'm not ready to say that he's necessarily the problem. Obviously, this year was going to be tough with the flat cap and, the uncertainty of everything. So I'm not going to get down on Kevin Adams. I'm not going to be super high on everything that he did. I'm kind of right in the middle. I'll give him C+, B-, but obviously the Taylor Hall thing will be the biggest deal, and I think that was at least something for me to get excited about. Without that, I don't know how excited I would be going into tomorrow to watch him play for the Sabres. So, yeah. Would you prefer to keep these divisions after the season? No. Honestly, though, being from Buffalo, being so close to Canada, I wouldn't want to get rid of those Canadian teams. I love the rivalry, even though the Canadian teams don't think it's a rivalry, between the Sabres and Canada. So I would miss the rivalries with the Canadian teams. But I will say, though, I've always kind of wanted a division with the Penguins, because Buffalo and Pittsburgh are pretty close, and the Rangers and the Islanders, obviously we're in the same state. We're not super close, but, it's still two more New York teams that I think could be in the division. So I don't know, I think the divisions could use a bit of a realignment. I don't think it's super necessary for the Lightning and the Panthers to be in our division with all of us up north and them being so far down south. But, I mean, what can you do? I don't know, I just think it would be cool to have more of those teams that in the Metro division that were kind of relatively close to us be in our division going forward. I think the divisions were fine the way they had them, and I'm sure they'll just go back to them once things get back to normal. I've not watched the Sabres in years. Hockey was never my first or second favorite sport. That being said, if the Sabres play well, I watch games. Do you think they finally turn the corner and become competitive this season? Will the shortened season help? They always seem to get off to a hard start and then fizzle. Maybe a short season will help that problem. Yeah, so that's kind of always, I've said what I've been excited about is the fact that maybe with 56 games instead of 82, maybe we start strong and then we don't have enough time to totally nosedive and finish at the bottom of the standings. It's so tough to tell, though, because you just don't know how guys are going to be in, with so many games during the season, basically a game every other night for the next 5 months, right? And it's going to be a grind, and I don't know how they'll react with there being no fans. I don't know how much of a difference that really makes. But like I said, I just think, I feel like there has to be kind of a competitive spirit that you kind of haven't seen with the Sabres over recent years. I feel like I said, being eliminated from the play-in round, I really hope it hurt them. I really hope it made them angry. I hope it made them just, want to go nuts this season. So, I hope they come out flying, and especially only playing the teams in your own division. Every single game's going to matter. If you lose, teams ahead of you are going to get points, you're going to end up with nothing. So it's so important to win as many games as possible this year, especially. I'm excited to see how they come out. Hopefully they come out strong, and hopefully they stay strong. I think that there's a good chance that they could be one of those surprise teams that maybe people didn't expect to do well and exceed expectations, but I could also see a scenario where they're the same old Sabres. So I don't know. What player will exceed expectations? So I am looking at two players here. I'm looking at, number one, Rasmus Dahlin. I think this is kind of the year he takes that massive step forward. Kind of like, Josh Allen going from his second year last year to now this being his third year. And, he's been in the MVP talk. He's led the team to a 13-3 season, a playoff win. I kind of think Rasmus Dahlin, I hope, has the same kind of step forward from year 2 to year 3. He seemed to have a really good offseason. He bulked up. He apparently looks really good. And I think especially too, being in a contract year, this is the last year of his entry-level contract. I look at him as kind of being someone that might exceed expectations. People kind of have general expectations for him, but I want this to be the kind of year that he takes that to a whole new level. Obviously people talk about Quinn Hughes and Kel McCarr, and I think he can easily be in that conversation, but I think he's obviously going to be the most important part of that back end. So I think there's going to be a lot of weight on his shoulders, but hopefully this is the year he kind of proves people that, hey, he's easily one of the best, if not the best, young defenseman in the league. Hopefully this is kind of the year where he can show people that. And then another guy that I'm looking at as someone who will exceed expectations is Tage Thompson. Tage Thompson actually, the past couple days, has been getting time on the first line with Jack Eichel and Taylor Hall, which I don't think has been surprising. I think that's actually a pretty good fit. Tage Thompson is obviously huge. He's, like 6'6", huge dude. And I think in the past, he's a great skater. He's got a great shot. He has all the skills, but I don't think he's ever really been able to put it all together to have that kind of complete game. That's kind of kept him, he didn't make the team last year. He was in Rochester last year and then got injured. So I don't know if he's going to be able to perform well, if that line's going to work with Jack and Taylor Hall. But I'm looking at him as kind of someone that maybe people didn't expect to have kind of a breakout year. Like Taylor Hall, they asked him about Tage Thompson. Taylor Hall said he was taken aback by how skilled of a player Tage Thompson was, which honestly would be great because Tage Thompson was a part of that Ryan O'Reilly trade, and maybe obviously that Ryan O'Reilly trade was horrible and abysmal, but maybe you got Tage Thompson, you got Ryan Johnson with that first round pick that they gave us, who looked pretty good for Team USA. So maybe the O'Reilly trade won't be totally lost. Maybe Tage Thompson will have a year. I'm looking at him as a potential breakout player, so we'll see. Do you think Jack Eichel is a good leader for this team? Yeah, I do. I think he's all, from the second I started paying attention to him back when he was in Boston and, playing for the Team USA, I think he's always kind of had that swagger, that leadership quality that, has always kind of made him special. You always hear people talk about him and you hear rumors, but I think you've definitely seen maturing from him. He's definitely not the same player he was, when he started here. He's not the same player he even was last year. He's growing, he's maturing, and I think he's the kind of player that needs a little bit more maturing. I don't think he's the kind of guy that came right into the league right away and was instantly, that kind of guy. Just watching him grow, I think he's definitely has learned what it means to be a leader, what it takes to be, a star in this league. So yeah, I think you'll see it more this year. I think he's a great leader, and I think he's a great captain for the Sabres. A bit more of a personal question. If you had the chance to work for the Sabres in any capacity, maybe as the first female on their amateur scouting staff, would you see yourself doing a job like that? So I've always just loved the idea of scouting. I could go back probably 10 years ago when I first started scouting junior players and paying attention to the draft and stuff. I love that stuff. I remember too, I used to work at an ice rink, and every year they'd have this massive USA National Development Camp where all the best 16, 17, 15-year-olds would come into the camp. They'd spend a week here, and I would always make sure I either got in early so I could watch or stayed late, and I would go into the rinks and I would hang out with, you'd see all these scouts wearing their jackets, and some had NHL logos on it, some had college logos on it. And so I would always make sure I'd be out there watching with them. And yeah, I love scouting. I love all that stuff. So, if I could ever do something like that, obviously I don't think that'll happen. But if I could, I would jump on it. I'm just saying, though, if I was in charge of the Sabres, right, they would have drafted Draisaitl over Reinhart, right? They would have drafted Mikhail Sergachev over Alex Nylander. They would have drafted Bo Horvat over Rasmus Ristolainen, right? You know what I mean? So it's could I really be worse than what they have? You know what I mean? Call me up, Sabres. I'm available if you need me. If the Sabres are going to make the playoffs, what are they going to need to be most prepared for? Honestly, I just think they have to be prepared for this crazy grind. Like I said, 56 games in the next however many months, in 5 months, less than that. It's going to be a tough grind. It's going to be incredibly tough with, you're playing only the same teams and you're competing against only those 7 other teams. So I think mentally they just have to be prepared every single night, and that's going to be tough considering, how long have we been saying that, oh wow, the Sabres played a game, they didn't look ready to play tonight, they got to be ready to go, they got to be ready to it's going to be tiring. I think everyone talks about Ralph Krueger being a great motivator and being someone who can kind of keep them focused and keep them optimistic. So hopefully that's something they're ready for. I would imagine it's going to be tough on every team, this kind of crazy schedule like this, but I think that'll probably be what ends up being pretty important. What team are you looking forward to play against the most? I mean, honestly, like, when the Sabres first made the playoffs back in 2006, that was kind of like the first time I ever really remembered them making the playoffs and got to witness like a playoff run. The first team they played was the Flyers, and that was like such a cool rivalry. And then later in 2011, the last time we actually made the playoffs, they played the Flyers in the first round there too. And I loved playing the Flyers. Like, I don't know, like, it was such a... We never really had a rivalry with the Flyers, at least that I was aware of. But it seemed like every time we played the Flyers, it was a really intense matchup. So, I mean, if we're talking about rivalries again, like, I don't know. I always liked that kind of dynamic between the Sabres and the Flyers. I'm going to love getting to see a ton of Alex Ovechkin, so playing the Capitals is going to be cool. Ovechkin's my favorite player in the league right now, non-Sabre, I guess. So being able to get to watch him a bunch of times is going to be awesome. And yeah, who knows, maybe, again, like maybe the New York teams, like maybe there'll be some kind of like renewed rivalry with the Islanders and the Rangers, all three of us being New York teams. So I think it'll be fun. Like, I think the group of teams that we have, like, there's not a team in that division that doesn't have like an awesome fan base. So I think it'll be a tough season, but I think it'll be a fun season. I'm kind of interested in your thinking about getting that first royal blue jersey. You said you didn't get Hall because he probably wasn't staying for more than a year. You're probably right, but I got my first royal blue jersey as a Hall jersey specifically for that reason. Hall's tenure with the Sabres will mark the first year back in royal blue. So, I mean, guys, did you really think I wasn't going to get a Taylor Hall jersey? Like, come on. I didn't do an unboxing for this one, but I did get the reverse retro jersey, and it's Taylor Hall. I like the concept of getting the reverse retro more, because the reverse retro jersey is only going to be a one-year jersey, and if Taylor Hall does end up being a one-year player, then it's kind of funny, and it marks kind of just this year. I also am not convinced that Taylor Hall is only going to be a one-year player, though. That's the thing. Like, when we first signed him, I just figured, like, oh, okay, you're going to play a year with Jack Eichel, you're going to score your goals, you're going to cash in and make your money and take it somewhere else. But I don't know, like, I think since I've been listening to him talk, the more I've listened to him talk, I think, like, the reason he only signed that one-year contract was because, you know, this is such an uncertain year, and times are really uncertain. I mean, of course, there's a chance that he could go sign somewhere else next year after his contract expires this year, but from the sounds of it, I mean, it sounds like he really likes the idea of being a Sabre. I mean, he already posted pictures of himself in Bills jerseys and stuff, so I don't think he would have signed here if he didn't want to be here, you know what I mean? So, to me, like, maybe he only ends up being a one-year player, but I like our chances of keeping it. Like, if everything works out, I like our chances of potentially bringing him back and signing a contract with more term next year, but I don't know. What do you think of O'Reilly being named Blues captain? I'm so happy for him. Good for him. Question, how do you think the Sabres will do now that they lost their star player in Jimmy Vesey? I'm going to be real with you guys. I don't understand the strategy by the Toronto Maple Leafs, like, going after a bunch of players that were such, like, low impact players for the Sabres. Like, who'd they end up getting? They got Bogosian, they got VC, they got Wayne Simmons. Like, it just seemed like they went after all these guys that just absolutely sucked for the Sabres. And, I mean, they have a more balanced team than we do, so maybe those are just kind of like depth pieces that we maybe used as more important than that. But I don't know. It was an interesting strategy to see the Leafs just go after all these Sabres that even the Sabres didn't want. But I don't know. Maybe it'll work out for them. How do you feel about the Sabres and the Leafs not playing each other this year? I would have missed the rivalry that's not a rivalry, according to Leafs fans, but come on. It obviously wouldn't be the same without fans, because the whole reason the Sabres play so well is because Leafs fans come in and take over our building, and the Sabres get mad about it, but I don't know, there's always that, like, heightened level of excitement that comes with Sabres and Leafs games, at least from the Sabres perspective. So I'm going to miss that rivalry, and even, too, like, the other the Canadians and the Senators, like, I don't know, I always liked playing the Canadian team, so I am going to miss them, but also, like, I don't mind not seeing them either, so either way. With the Bills winning and a legitimate Super Bowl threat, How does that affect your personal Sabres expectations? Does it make content with seeing one team succeed, or does it put extra pressure on wanting the Sabres to win too, which could lead to extra disappointment if they don't? No. Like, being a Buffalo sports fan, like, you don't get greedy, right? Like, so if one team does well, like, you don't expect the other team to do well. Like, there's no both, right? So, you know, with the Bills doing as well as they have, even if they don't end up going very far in the playoffs, this season has been such a success for the Bills. Like, it's been, like, such a great feeling that I'm at the point where, like, the Sabres season starts tomorrow, and I really, like, I'm just still thinking about the next Bills game on Saturday. So the buzz around the Sabres season starting, like, there is none. Like, I don't even know if a lot of people know that the Sabres season starts tomorrow. Like, I'm sure they do, but, like, no one really cares right now, you know what I mean? It's not very important. It's not very high on people's priority list with the Bills being where they are. So I'm kind of at the point now where the Bills have done enough this year to satisfy me the whole Sabres year. Obviously, I want the Sabres to do well, but I'm also like, the Bills did well. At least we have that. Like, it's not like they're both bad, you know? So that's a funny question, though. Do you think Casey Mittelstadt will finally produce and stay in the NHL? No. I'm fully ready to put him in, like, full-on bust category. I'm not kidding. Like, you know, what was he, like, the 8th overall pick in 2017, and they just put him on the taxi squad today. That sucks, man. Like, come on. You know, Dylan Cousins made the team. He was the first-round pick in the 2019 draft, so 2 years later, and he's already making an impact. And Casey Mittelstadt can't be one of the 12 best forwards on the Sabres all these years after his draft year. Like, to me, the problem with Casey Mittelstadt is, you know, he's always had a ton of talent. He's always been very skilled, but he's never really struck me as the kind of guy that's had that, like, next-level desire. You know what I mean? Like, he's never struck me as the kind of guy that just wanted to be great. And I think that's kind of showed. Like, you got all these guys around him that he was obviously a star at the World Juniors, which is why I'm not getting totally excited, or, like, I'm not totally overreacting about how well the Sabres performed at the World Juniors, because I have Casey Mittelstadt PTSD. But, you know, he did so well at the World Juniors, so to see him kind of completely flop at the professional level, I mean, maybe he needs another year of AHL hockey, even if there's not going to be much AHL hockey, but maybe he needs another year of that. And, I don't know. Like, his ceiling just doesn't seem that high. Like, he kind of seems like a third-line winger, which, when you're picking a guy in the top 10, like, that sucks. You know, and especially you're drafting him as kind of projected to be like a second-line center, and to think that maybe he won't even fulfill a ceiling as a third-line winger is, like, it's frustrating. And coming a year after drafting Alex Nylander, who kind of had bust written all over him too. I mean, that's why bad teams stay bad, you know? So, what shape are Sabres in, and who will win the Cup in 2021? Sabres are who they are. Like, they're alright. But in terms of my Cup prediction, I am going to say that the Colorado Avalanche will win the Stanley Cup. That's my prediction. They looked so good last year, and, you know, they looked great last year, and they're also getting, like, Bowen Byram. Like, they're stacked. Like, they're crazy good, which, you know, some of you know they're my second favorite team in the league. I root for them when I'm not rooting for the Sabres. So I'm going all in on Colorado to win the Cup this year. I love their team. They have such a well-balanced team that I think they're going to be tough to beat. They really are. Who wins the North Canadian division? Ugh. That's honestly going to be a fun division to watch. I don't know who's going to win it. But that's going to be such, like, all those battles of Alberta. Are you kidding me? That's going to be amazing. Like, I can't wait. I don't know. Maybe the Oilers, maybe McDavid and Draisaitl just go off and go nuts against the other Canadian teams. I like the Canucks, too. Like, I like their team. I think they got a pretty cool young team. So I don't know. I don't like making predictions on those kind of things, but I'm definitely going to be watching a lot of Canadian division hockey, that's for sure. Alrighty, and last but not least, be honest to yourself. Do you think the Sabres will make the playoffs? I don't know. I think they can be competitive. Like, even in this tough division, I do truly believe they can be competitive, which might be a little bit more optimistic than a lot of people might think, you know, looking in. But I do think they can be competitive. It's going to be so hard to finish in the top 4 of that group. if they do make the playoffs, I don't see them finishing anything other than 4th. Like, how? Like, how are they going to be better than, you know, half those teams, right? But I'm going to say, if I had to guess, I'm going to say that they miss out on the playoffs. But I really, like, my main hope for the season is that they remain competitive the entire year. They push for a playoff spot. I hope every single game for them is meaningful. I hope, you know, usually in a normal year, by around, like, end of February, beginning of March, the season's already over, the games aren't meaningful anymore. So I just hope every single game is meaningful. I hope they're competitive. I hope they give the other teams a run for their money. I don't think it's the absolute end of the world if they don't make the playoffs, but as long as they're competitive, then to me, I think that's a win, I guess. I don't know. Like my thoughts might change as the year goes on, but like I said, I just be competitive, play like you mean it, play like you want to win, and I think that's really all anyone in Buffalo is going to ask for, so yeah. So you guys, thank you for sending me in questions. I'm so excited for the start of the NHL season, and thank you to everyone for sticking with me. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do. We are gaining on the Sabres. We're getting there. I can feel it. It's happening. My all-time goal is to pass the Buffalo Sabres in total subscribers because I think it'd be funny. But either way, thank you for sending in questions. I'm ready to go, and I hope you guys are too. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment below what you think about my thoughts. If you want to just start a whole dialogue, I love that kind of stuff. So, but you know, please make sure to just keep it on topic. But yeah, I will see you soon. Go Bills. Go Sabres. Bye, guys.